Good morning and welcome to Qigong Live Online. It's been a few weeks. We've been away. I've been in New Zealand actually. I've been doing some administration stuff in New Zealand. So welcome back. And so today's class, this is the advanced class. So we're going to introduce a concept that comes out of Daoyin Qigong. Daoyin is one of the very, very early sets of Qigong. And I like the Daoyin practice. I teach a lot of it. And we're going to talk about functions of consciousness. How's that? That's a big terminology. This is the Chinese characters. That's what it means. And we're going to talk a thing about painstaking effort. And that's what we're going to discuss today, about how we take that away. And it's part of Qigong deviations. And I'm going to explain a little bit about what that actually is. Okay. So we'll just bow into the class. Good to see you all again. As I say, it's been a little while. Back in Bali, back in the heat. It was really cold in New Zealand. It was freezing. It's good to be back in the heat. Roll back on your thumbs. Left hand underneath, right hand on top, two thumbs together. Go. Bring the energy towards your heart and then down to your physical center. So what you're doing is you're gathering qi from consciousness, or the bigger consciousness, and you're bringing it into your own heart. So notice you're not bringing it into your mind, you're bringing it into your heart, your shen, your spirit. And then you're storing the surplus energy of that in your physical centers for your physical activities. There you go. A little bit of explanation. So, Qigong deviations. First of all, what is Qigong deviation? It's actually called Qigong sickness in China. They actually got an official name for it. And it's quite often happens when people overtrain or they try too hard with the practice. And we're going to talk about that. There's a few different variations of how you get the deviations, but it actually can upset your energy in your body. And there's certain things you need to do. If somebody in my class ever has that, I've never seen anybody that has this effect. They've had slight ones, but not to the full state where, because what can happen is you can do exercise and can't stop because you're so lost in it. But you'd have to be training a lot to do that, so I wouldn't worry about that. As I say, I've never actually seen anybody ever get stuck in that. So that's 30 years, so but it is a known thing. So painstaking effort. So we're talking about having consciousness or dysfunctions of consciousness. So we are humans, we have consciousness, right? It's when we wake up in the morning, we go from our dream state, our consciousness in the dream state, or wherever you are in your concept. There's a concept of how many different dream states you have, and you come out of those consciousness or those realms into this one. And this one we have a physical body, and those ones you don't. You just have your conscious, your energy, because that's why you can't see your body when you're dreaming, because you don't have one. But this one you do. And so a consciousness comes inside this physical form and has this experience of physical form, of this form of consciousness. And we have all our senses, so we have a sensory experience of the sound, the hearing, the smell, the taste of this world. And we can derive the sensations of that, and we can feel hot and cold, and we can feel sadness and anger and all those things. We have a sensory experience, which is very and interesting. I've said this before, and you can't explain any of those. Your mind cannot explain any of the senses. And I haven't said it before, so I'll mention it again. So you can't explain what the color yellow looks like. You can't explain what the banana tastes like. You can't explain what the C minor note sounds like, the musical note. You can't explain what heat feels like. You can't explain what cold feels like. You can't explain what sadness feels like. You can't explain what anger feels like. Because there's no words. There's no words to describe these sensations or these feelings. And our theory is we're here for a sensory experience, not a mental experience. And so we're going back to the senses and having that experience without any judgment, without anything else to understand. It's all part of the human experience. But our conscious can get disturbed. Our conscious in this realm of we're having these experiences can get disturbed, where all of a sudden the senses will get shut down. And you've seen this, you've heard of people that have the sensory shutdowns, and their consciousness now can't communicate into this world. So Qigong deviations are part of that, about losing or dysfunctions of consciousness, where you lose this ability to have all these senses functioning. I mean, I try and grow my senses all the time. I'm always bringing attention to what I feel, taste, smell. And I notice it, and I bring my attention to it. That's a really lovely smell I can smell. Or I see a beautiful flower and I look at it and so that's just exquisite. But I bring myself back to the sense all the time. I'm in New Zealand, I would say, I feel cold. And here in Bali, I feel warm. But how that warmth feels in my body. I was walking around the floor today on the marble floor, and it wasn't cold. You couldn't walk around in New Zealand with bare feet, it would just be freezing. So to bring your attention to the senses And the fact that I feel happy, and I bring my attention to what happy feels like. I can't explain what happy feels like, so it's impossible, but I bring my attention to the experience of that. So these deviations are when you're not doing that and you get stuck in your mind. So it can happen to Qigong practice. When you're doing Qigong practices, you can get really complex exercises that take a lot of thought and there's a lot of exercise going inside it. And you can get confused in your mind, and your mind can get stuck. And it interferes with the consciousness because of the too much thinking at the same time about something. And I'll give you an example. I'll give you an easy one. I'll give you a hard one to do. We'll do wave hands. No, we don't do cloud hands. And so I'll show you what I mean anyway. So we'll start with cloud hands. And I'm just going to show it to you. If you haven't already done this exercise, the hand comes up, turns to the side, palm goes down, the other hand comes up. Good. And then follow your hand across with your head, palm goes down, hand comes up. Now I'm doing this in ecstatic posture where I'm just moving from side to side. Now I'm going to keep adding pieces to it and just show you how complicated this exercise really is. But on the outside, it doesn't look that difficult. Palm comes up, palm goes out, palm comes up, palm goes out. Good. So we breathe in as we go across. Breathe out as you go across. You breathe in at the end, and you breathe out to the center, to there, and then you breathe into the center, to the corner. Then you breathe out to there. Then you breathe in and breathe out. So there's 2 breaths done inside this. Breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out. Good. At the same time, I'm rotating my hips. Now my hips are moving my arms. I'm not just moving my arms. If I do it without moving my hips, it looks like this. But as soon as I move my hips are moving my arms. So the arms are being generated, the energy being generated in the arms is coming from my hips. Good. And I'm staying static. Now we're going to bring up the energy from the ground up through the kidney points and the liver. It's going to come up into the body, and the liver's going to come up the meridians on both legs, and then it's going to generate the movement of my hips. The kidney energy and the liver energy is going to generate the movement of my hips because it comes up through both meridians, gets to my hips and turns my hips. Yep. And then when I'm breathing out, it's going out through the gallbladder meridian. Morning, Mark. Morning, Nitya. Mark, haven't seen you for a while. We need to catch up. So we're turning. So now we've got all of this going on at once. We've got energy coming up from the ground through kidneys and liver. We've got double weight at this stage. We've got a breath to halfway, and then breathe in at the end, and then breathe out to the middle. We're trying to keep our shoulders relaxed. We're not picking our shoulders up. We're not picking our shoulders up to the exercise. We're just moving our arms across. We're generating from our hips. Now at this stage, we're going to have the energy going out your hands. It's going to go out through your pericardium, and it's going to go out through your gallbladder meridian. Your gallbladder meridian starts at the top of your face and goes down the side of your body. And the rest of it going out through the hand, through the pericardium. So you can see how much is going on. We haven't finished yet. There's more to this. Now, your mind right now, hopefully, is confused. So we're breathing out the kidney, breathing out the liver, breathing out through the pericardium, breathing down the gallbladder meridian. Yep. Good. We're breathing out to the center and in when we go to the sides. We're rotating from our hips. We're rotating from our center column as we're turning for our center columns, turning our hips. Good. And just when your mind starts to get ready to that, and then we're going to move from side to side. And we're going to go across, and then we're going to turn. And we're going to go across, and we're going to turn. And I'm doing this because this exercise is not easy to do, and you're meant to be saying right now, how am I to remember all of that? Well, you're not. It's a practice. Good. So what happens is your mind starts trying to chase all these things. It tries to chase the breathing. It chases what's happening with the hips. It chases which leg the energy is coming up and which ones it's going out from which hand and which time. Because we're changing weight, so it changes from side to side. Gallbladder one side, gallbladder the other side. Kidney, liver one side, kidney, liver on the other side. You're trying to keep a straight back at the same time. You're trying to keep your pelvis tucked. All of that's inside this one exercise. And you're breathing in and out smoothly. And even in breath, even out breath. So I'm going to stop that before you get too confused. If not, you might, if you've already done this exercise with me, you'll be okay with everything I've said because we've built up to it. So that's what happens. So all of that's going on in your mind at the same time. Now, the idea of Qigong, of course, is to relax your mind and not think about anything. Well, it's pretty difficult with all these things going on, and if you've never done the exercise, you're trying to think of all of them at the same time. Or you focus on breathing, then you focus on the arms, then you focus on no shoulders, then you focus on your chin back, then you focus on your hips being forward, then you change weight, and then the rotation, what's happening on top of your kidney point. Then we're talking about the meridians, and which one is meridians going up and which one's going out. And your mind's trying to do that during the exercise. Well, Qigong, the theory of Qigong, it's really good for quietening your mind. Well, that's the last thing that's happening after all of that, isn't it? Your mind's flat out trying to work out how to do all that. And of course, with practice, with a long practice, then you understand that and you don't have to think about it, but it doesn't come day one. It takes a while to do that. And then they call that, and you're trying to do it all at once, and they call that painstaking effort. It's like you're using a lot of mental power to try and keep up with all of that at once. And that's where the confusion happens. And you can get headaches from it. Yeah, you can get qi disturbances in the body because the exercise is using so much mental power trying to keep up with what's going on in the exercise and trying to do everything at the same time and think of everything at the same time. And that's where the problem lies. So how you get out, because I'm going to tell you how you get into the dysfunctions of consciousness, which is too much going on in your mind at once, and how you change that, of course, as you go back to not doing the center. And all you think of is the hand, palm goes out, palm goes down, palm comes up, palm goes down, and you just think of that, nothing else, just one thing. You don't think about the breathing. You don't think about the meridians. You just think of the physical aspect of the exercise. Palm comes up, palm goes across. So you're watching your hand. Hand comes up, your head and your hand moves together. Palm down, hand comes up, head and hand move together. Palm goes down. And you're just doing one thing. You're just watching your hands with your head. That's all you're doing. So this is how you get out of it. So you simplify it. So you get down to a really simplistic thing that's happening where the mind can rest. The mind hasn't got all those other things going on. And we as human beings, we like to do it all. We like to think that we're going to start something. We do it 100% perfectly. This is the way it is. Qigong is one of those weird things. You can't do this perfect because every time you do it, it changes. You just get more and more sensation, more feelings, more relaxation, more everything. It never stops. Every time I do this exercise, like my hand at the moment, I can feel my little fingers differently than I felt before. So it always changes. So there is no answer. There's no, I've done it right. There is no such thing as I've done it right. It just keeps changing. So to make it easy, you start off with really simple things, just like the hands, nothing else. And you build on top of it. But we, as I say, we as humans, we want it all now. We want the McDonald's, we want the whole lot in one go. We want all aspects of it and then we practice it. But Qigong doesn't work that way. It's something that you build on top of things. It takes time. It takes practice. And the more you practice, the more the energy changes. You just can't have that at one go. It doesn't work. Because all you're going to be doing is stuck in your head. And the idea of Qigong is to get out of your mind and get into your physical body and be aware of the energy moving your body and be aware of the energy flowing through your body. Well, you can't do that if you're so busy thinking about all the different aspects of the exercise. Cool, and just rest there. Just finish that, rest. And I quite often say this to people, that giving you a complex exercise like that to do isn't doing you any service. People come and do courses and I'll show them the exercise. I said, you better not to know all the other stuff because your mind's going to go and chase it all, trying to do it all at once, trying to be perfect at it. And there's no such thing as perfect at it. And so it's difficult to settle for you to settle for this is just enough. I don't need to think anything else, just the physical. Our mind, the way we've been taught in the world is we want to know it all. We want to know all parts of it, all the breathing. We want to know the meridians. We want to know all of that all at the same time. And all it does is get huge mental confusion. And that's the dysfunctions of consciousness. It causes that because now our mind's stuck in it. We're not doing the exercise from our heart or from our physical center. Now we're doing it from our head. And that's the whole, to sort of debunks the whole idea of doing Qigong, is to get it out of the head. Now I just put you straight back in. And as I say, I said to my students, sometimes me telling you all these different aspects is not doing you any service, because you're going to spend years chasing it around trying to do all those different things, where really you want to be trying to get your mind relaxed. So how you get out of that, you simplify it and you take it all the way down and just do one piece. So that's it. That's even this is not easy to do. Yep, you might not even move your hips, you just move just your arms. Just get the idea what it feels like to move your arms without your hips even moving. Because as soon as I add the hips, now the body's got another thing to do. It's got 3 things doing. This one, when I've no hips, I've got 2 arms moving. That's all I have to worry about. As soon as I move the hips, now I've got 3 things. If I go from side to side, I've got 4 things, and then I've got 5 things going back the other way. I've got the rotation, that's 6 things. I've got the breathing, that's 7 things. I've got the meridians, it's depending how many meridians, well, I gave you 4, so that's another 4, 6, that's 11 we're up to. 11 different parts of the exercise. Then I gave you your head string, that's 12. I gave you your hips, the rotation of your hips. I gave you from center column, 12, 13, 14, and we'll make and add another one. You do it from your heart. 15. 15 things to think about in one exercise. And you can see why you can get mental confusion from all that trying to think. But as I say, the easiest way, go back to the start. That's why sometimes the easiest thing, the easiest thing I can show you in Qigong is this movement, moving from weight change from side to side. And understanding just that. And that's, even though your mind says, oh, that's really easy, I can do that, I don't have to do anything, I'll just go from side to side. That's incredibly complicated to do that correctly. The weight change, because the weight change is going from kidney point to kidney point. Yeah, and the movement across the hips, there's a movement, and you don't want this going like this. There's a pendulum goes across, but it's a slight curve. It doesn't go straight across and straight back. It doesn't do that, it goes down and slightly up. So there's lots of pieces to that. But even that, the simplicity of that, and then the mind starts going crazy. Oh, well, I've worked out how to do that. Okay, what's next? And the key to it is just to sit inside the simplicity and just let be enough. And inside that, the mind struggles to find things to do, and you want your mind to stop so you can observe yourself or experience the inside your body without your mind making up all these stories about whether you're doing it right or not, or whether the person over there is doing it better than you, or how you're feeling, or what I'm saying, or having judgment about anything. And so that the simpler the exercise, the more your mind's going to go crazy. That's why meditation is difficult for some people. You sit and meditate, and your mind just goes crazy because you're not doing anything. You're just sitting there, and you're sitting inside your own thoughts. And so the idea, of course, meditation is to get the mind to stop, to have a break and say, have a gap between the 2 thoughts and experience the gap. Qigong is the same thing, of course, it's done mobile, but the idea is we're observing, if I'm going from side to side, I'm observing the gap at one side and observing the gap on the other side, because it has to change directions. And when you change direction, you have to stop and then come back. You stop and then come back. I'm observing what happens in the stop, not the movement. It's the piece where you don't do anything. The piece where it changes direction for a millisecond, a millionth of a second of space and time, you do not move. Because you've got to stop one way, and then you've got to come back the other way. So you have to go, stop, come back. That stop is the key to everything, not the movement. It's what happens in the stop. And as I say, meditation does it a lot. They talk about the gap between thoughts, the gap between your breaths, 2 breaths, the breathe in, breathe out, and watching what happens in between the breath. That's the same principle. So the answer to the question about the painstaking effort is don't have painstaking effort. If it's difficult, if it's too much, and you get all these complex pieces, that's too much. Just go back to the simplicity. Go back to the simpleness of the exercise. Go back to the fundamental piece of one little piece of it, and just be happy with that one little piece. And not be chasing all 16 parts of it at once, trying to do them all right. Yeah, there's a few others I hadn't even mentioned too, by the way, putting tongue on your roof of your mouth and puckering your anus and linking red wine and do one together. There's a whole lot of different things. Having your qua opening and closing when you're moving from side to side. Yeah, having the spot here, your sacrum, as your sacrum moves from side to side, it slightly moves inside your body. Yeah, having all of these things happening at the same time. Feeling the joints, your hip joints, top of your hip joints, they slightly move inside the socket because they're rolling from one side to the other. I'll do that so it's right. They roll from one side to the other as you're moving slightly, and feeling the movement of the hip joint. Even though it's a smooth cartilage, you can actually feel it rolling inside your hips. Well, try and think of all that at once. Good luck. Don't do that. That just defeats the purpose of Qigong. Yep. So then go back, and you'll notice I quite often, if I'm demonstrating exercise, I always demonstrate something really simple. Yep. We do wave hands over the leg. Come breathing in, comes up. Breathe out, it goes down. That's it. The simplicity of that. But everything you need to know in Qigong lives inside this exercise. And it's probably the easiest one because you can let your mind go faster because it's not difficult to do. But this is an incredibly complex exercise for what's actually happening inside the body and what you are and what you're not doing inside this exercise. And we always start with the physical first. All I'm doing is lifting my arms up, shoulder height, and then I'm bringing it back down again. I'm not doing anything else but that. Really simple. I'm not moving any weight. I'm not changing weight. I'm just bringing it up. And then I'm going to the first part of that, after I do the physical piece, I'm going to try and do it with energy and not the muscles. So I'm going to relax the muscles and just let the energy float up. And the arms become different, let alone everything else behind this exercise. Simplicity. And inside this, everything happens. Inside the stillness, inside the quietness. If your mind can only tolerate the quietness, if your mind can tolerate doing nothing, thinking about nothing, being nothing, achieving nothing, that's the thing. The terminology is to learn how to do nothing well. And the less you do, the more your body changes, but the more your mind changes, and the more control you have on your mind, where you get to choose what you think, you get to choose to turn your mind off and on, and you get to choose to sit inside the peace and quiet without the mind filling up the gap. And the Qigong teaches you how to do that. But some of the Qigong exercises, as I say, are really complicated, and it can take a long time to work out how to do that. And your mind's chasing perfection. Well, if you do this one here, it's seemingly quite easy to achieve, so then the mind's got nothing to do. How hard is it to lift your arms up and left down? Unless there's something wrong with your arm or shoulder, of course. But how hard in theory is it to do this, is to lift your arms up and then bring them down again. That's why it's such a good exercise. That's why it's the first exercise in the Shir by Shir. 18 exercises, number 1. Learn to do nothing, folks. Learn to do nothing first. There you go. So hopefully this has helped you. If you have any questions about understanding this, the deviations and understanding the dysfunctions of consciousness, and understanding the concept of painstaking effort, trying too hard, trying to do everything at once, trying to get your brains trying to do everything. It's trying to get the whole thing right, and there is no right. So painstaking effort on trying to be perfect is just a waste of time, because there is no perfect. It just constantly changes. I'll leave you with the last thought. I asked my master when I was young, when I first started training, I said, how do you know when you've got these exercises right? And his answer, I quote you, he said, when you can do it on water. And of course, I just laughed. Well, how do you do that? And he says, 60 years of practice. I go, yeah, good idea. But do we have the ability as a human being? It's just take some time every day to be in this stillness for 60 years. I've got a few more years to go yet. I'm only halfway there. But I understand the principle. That simple. And what it does when you spend 10 minutes a day or 20 minutes a day or half an hour a day doing Qigong, what it does put your mind in its rightful place. And put your mind in a place where you're in control of your mind and your mind's not in control of you. And that's one of the wonders of Qigong. One of the many things it does. Anyway, I'll leave you with that thought. Have a beautiful day. Have a beautiful week. I'm off next week again. I've pre-recorded some classes for next week. For the next 3 weeks, I'm running the 200 hours teachers training up at Ewood for 3 weeks. But I've pre-recorded the class for the next 3 weeks, so we'll keep you busy. And I'll see you back after that. No painstaking effort. Relax, keep your mind quiet. Enjoy the peace and quiet. It's a very, very beautiful place. Back on your thumbs. 2 thumbs together. Go. Make a fist with your left hand, cover it with your right. Bring the energy towards your heart, towards your soul. And then return the surplus Qi back to your lower dantian. Good, and then step back. Right now my whole body is vibrating with energy. Just those 2 exercises, the whole thing is just alive. And it's the simplicity of that. It's such a beautiful thing. Qigong is such a very magical thing, but you have to practice. It comes from the practice. Have a beautiful week, eh? And I'll see you next week. And please, if you have any questions, please write them down. And thank you, Mark, for joining the class. Thank you, Nithya, for joining the class. And who else watches it in the future? Hopefully that's useful. If you have any questions about what I've been talking about today, please ask. You're very, very welcome. Lots of love. Bye-bye.